In the stillness of Sinman, a single event 2 decades ago set off a chain of actions that would ripple through time. Nestled among rolling hills and quiet streets, Sinman was once a portrait of tranquility, untouched by the shadows of the outside world. But beneath this serene facade, a dark tale was unfolding, one that would mark the soul of a 13-year-old boy named Jang Coko. On a chilly autumn evening, the unimaginable happened. Jang, a bright and curious child, witnessed a brutal attack that would forever alter the course of his life. His mother, a kind-hearted woman known for her generosity, fell victim to a violent crime perpetrated by individuals she once considered friends. The horror of that night etched a deep scar in Jang's young mind, planting seeds of a dark quest that would grow with him. As Jang grew older, the shadows of that night never faded. They followed him, molding his perspectives, his desires, and his actions. A young mind, once witness to horror, grows shadowed by the weight of unresolved vengeance. Fast forward 20 years, the past refuses to lie dormant. In the quiet corridors of the courthouse, the air is thick with anticipation as Jang Coko, now a man, stands accused. The charge sheet reads, 3 counts of intentional homicide. The targets? The Long family entwined with his darkest memories, the alleged assailants of his mother 2 decades prior. As the judge calls the court to order, the gallery is packed. Onlookers, journalists, and family members of both the accused and the victims fill every seat, each person drawn into the unfolding drama of delayed vengeance. The prosecutor presents the case with a stern voice, detailing the events that led Jang to take the law into his own hands after years of simmering anger. Jang, with his deep-set eyes and a demeanor that oscillates between calm and stormy, listens intently. His defense argues that his actions, while drastic, were the culmination of a life marred by trauma and injustice. They paint a picture of a child who grew up shadowed by the horror of his mother's attack, a boy who turned into a man with a wounded heart and a fractured psyche. Exhibits are presented one by one: photos from the crime scene, the small worn knife Jang allegedly used, and forensic reports. Each piece seems to echo the tragedy of years gone by, a son's unresolved grief manifesting into a dark, irrevocable act. Witnesses take the stand, their testimonies weaving a complex tapestry of past and present. A childhood friend recalls Jang as a quiet, introspective boy, forever changed that fateful night. A neighbor describes the transformation over the years, from grief to something harder, more definitive. As the day progresses, the weight of the past bears down on everyone present. The courtroom, filled with whispers and the rustle of legal papers, becomes a crucible where years of pain and loss are examined under the unforgiving light of legal scrutiny. The courtroom becomes the arena where past grievances demand retribution. This is the stage set for a confrontation not just between a man and his accused, but between memory and the hope for peace. The Spring Festival of 2018, a day marked by celebration, yet destined for calamity. In the heart of Sinman, the Spring Festival painted the village in vibrant hues. Stalls adorned with colorful decorations, the air filled with the aroma of street foods, and laughter mingling with the melody of traditional music. Among the revelers was Jang Coko, a figure haunted by a history written in sorrow and rage. From dawn, Jang had been preparing. In the solitude of his small, dimly lit room, he meticulously sharpened a small knife, the instrument of his long-awaited justice. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment act. It was the culmination of 20 years of grief and anger simmering beneath a calm exterior. As the festival progressed, Jang's eyes searched through the crowd, finally resting on the Long family, laughing carelessly among the crowd. His heart raced, his grip tightened. It was now or never. Eyewitnesses later described the scene as surreal. Jang approached the Longs, his steps steady, his expression unreadable. Words were exchanged, though the music drowned them out. Then, chaos erupted. The knife glinted briefly in the sunlight before it found its mark. Screams pierced the festive air, turning heads and chilling hearts. The immediate aftermath was pandemonium. People scrambled in all directions. Some tried to apprehend Jang, others rushed to aid the wounded. Amidst the confusion, Jang stood still, the knife dropping from his hand, his face a mask of both relief and despair. Friends of Jang, interviewed later, expressed shock yet a somber understanding. He was always the quiet one mentioned, carrying a burden we could only imagine. As the festival grounds cleared and the police sirens wailed in the distance, the Spring Festival of 2018 was no longer a celebration, but a crime scene. a community stood divided, grappling with the blurred lines between justice and revenge. In moments, a festival of joy turned into an arena of vengeance. In the courtroom, every voice carries weight, every silence a story. As the gavel strikes, the trial of Jang Coko begins, a courtroom packed with tension and anticipation. On one side, the prosecution presents a narrative of premeditated revenge. They argue that Yang, haunted by the murder of his mother 2 decades earlier, meticulously planned the demise of the Long family, the very people he held responsible. The lead prosecutor's voice booms across the room. Jang Coko allowed his thirst for vengeance to dictate his actions. This was not an act of desperation, but a calculated execution of 3 innocent lives. The presentation is clinical, supported by forensic evidence and timelines that seem to leave little room for doubt. Then, the defense takes the floor, painting a vastly different picture. Jang's attorney, a seasoned lawyer with a soft but firm tone, challenges the court's perception. Consider the psychological impact of witnessing such a horror at a tender age. Jang was not living, he was surviving, trapped in a loop of that traumatic night. The defense argues that Jang's actions, while extreme, were the result of psychological scars and an overwhelming sense of unresolved injustice. Witnesses take the stand, each adding layers to the story. A childhood friend of Jang recounts, "He was never the same after that night, always distant, always angry." Yet another witness, an elderly neighbor, suggests a different angle, hinting at possible provocations from the Long family over the years. As the trial progresses, the themes of justice versus revenge are fervently debated. Was Jang seeking justice for an unpunished crime, or was he enacting revenge? The line between the two blurs as testimonies evokes sympathy and revulsion alike. Evidence mounts, testimonies clash, and the atmosphere thickens with each passing moment. The jurors, faced with the daunting task of untangling this web of grief and anger, listen intently. As arguments fade, the line between justice and revenge blurs. A verdict not just for a man, but for a community, for a nation. The courtroom was tense, the air thick with anticipation, as the judge prepared to deliver the final verdict in the case of Jang Coko. Accused of 3 counts of intentional homicide, the gravity of the decision was palpable. The gavel fell, and the judge pronounced a sentence of death for Jang Coko. The courtroom erupted into a cacophony of emotions, some cries of relief, others of despair. The verdict not only sealed the fate of Jang Coko, but also reopened wounds in the village of Sinman. For the Long family, the decision brought a somber kind of closure, yet the shadows of the past loomed large. On the other hand, Jang's family was shattered. The boy who had lost his mother to a brutal act had now lost his freedom and soon his life to the very same cycle of violence. Outside the courtroom, the verdict ignited a fierce public debate. Media outlets picked up the story, broadcasting the tragic saga of Jang Coko far and wide. Social media became a battleground with hashtags like #JusticeForJang and #DeathPenaltyDebate trending across platforms. The public was divided. Some argued that the sentence was a necessary closure, a deterrent for others. Others saw it as a failure of the justice system, a cruel irony that a victim of such profound loss was met not with rehabilitation, but with retribution. Scholars and activists joined the fray, pointing to the case as a stark example of the complexities facing the criminal justice system. Discussions about the nature of justice, the effectiveness of the death penalty, and the potential for rehabilitation in lieu of retribution were sparked. Universities held symposiums, and community centers organized forums to dissect the layers of this case, each session a reflection of a community grappling with its values and principles. In Sinman, life moved on, but the scars remained. The streets that once buzzed with the joy of the Spring Festival now echoed with the whispers of the past. Families affected by the tragedy tried to find solace in routine, their lives indelibly marked by the verdict. The gavel falls, and with it heavy are the hearts of many. As the dust settles, we ponder the remnants of a tragedy interwoven with justice. The case of Jang Coko raises profound questions about the nature of justice itself. What happens when the lines between retribution and justice blur? When is the pursuit of justice transformed into a quest for revenge? Jang's actions, driven by the deep scars of his childhood trauma, compel us to examine the complexities of human emotion and the legal boundaries that are meant to guide us. It's a stark reminder of the painful realities that many face, where the desire for justice can sometimes eclipse the means by which it is sought. In the heart of this story lies a broader societal reflection. How do we balance the scales of justice fairly when emotions run high? Can a legal system truly deliver peace to those haunted by the past? In the shadows of vengeance and the light of justice, we find our truths questioned and our beliefs tested.